Missing is a relative word in this story, because characters like the Three-Eyed Raven and Bran and other prophetic dreamers exist. Omnipresent gods are a thing here. But there's also some missing characters like Arya or Tyrion who are only gone in the perspective of a Westerosi. And I don't even know how to approach a discussion with characters like Mage Mormont or Hollis Mullen. Lady Mormont is carrying Robb Stark's will and actively looking for Howland Reed in his moving castle within his northern swamp. Hollis Mullen is carrying Ned's remains back to Winterfell to bury him in the family's crypts. But both Mage Mormont and Hollis haven't been seen for years. So if they're missing in the reader's perspective, are they truly missing? Missing both in the story and to us readers is where all the fun speculation goes down. Not gonna blab about their whole backstory, rather focus on the events of their disappearance. That's what this whole video is about, ain't it? Benjen is likely gone from mankind, but some must know where he's been in the books. I think it's easy to forget what Benjen was doing beyond the wall to get lost in the first place. Most probably think he was scouting wildlings, but he was out on a specific mission early in the story. Benjen Stark, the first ranger, of very high profile rank amongst the Night's Watch, basically the head of one of his departments, was tasked by the Lord Commander to find out what really happened to those three brothers that came across the first White Walkers were introduced to in that iconic prologue scene. Two never returned. We know because we witnessed their deaths, while the third deserted and made off for Winterfell, where the traumatized and seemingly psychotic character was beheaded by good old Ned Stark. Benjen was allowed 6 men to join him, but only 2 are ever recovered near the wall, killed from apparent battle wounds. Both are reanimated as whites within Castle Black, which does hint at what happened to Benjen. His group was definitely attacked, but whether or not he's a zombie hasn't been answered in the books, like it was in Game of Thrones. George Martin has come out and answered if the fan theories were true about the undead character helping out Bran and Sam called Coldhands was in fact Benjen under the service of the Three-Eyed Raven. Martin straight up tells us it's not him. Up to you if you want to believe him, because Coldhands has been hiding his face from Bran and was clearly a brother in the past. The Three-Eyed Raven was once also a missing character, a bastard to a Targaryen king, who eventually became Lord Commander of the Night's Watch after being sentenced here for unethical practices as his family's Master of Whispers and Hand of the King. Like Benjen, he went missing during a range beyond the wall, and somehow made it into the cave with the Children of the Forest. A name even the biggest book fans won't recognize is Stone Snake, another brother of the Night's Watch. He gets that name for pretty much being the best climber in the story. He went missing in a mountain range after being pursued by some wildlings. He's never been mentioned since the 3rd book, so who knows if he found his way down yet, or froze to death. I don't know if anyone cares though. Moving away from this part of the world, the Stark kids' great uncle Brendan Tully, aka the Blackfish, made like his name and jumped in a massive river to escape Lannister and Frey capture during the 4th book. He's a hell of a swimmer, so we know this fun character made it out okay, especially after the men looking for him came back empty-handed. He's high on the Lannisters' list to take out for how defiant he was with the Tully's castle, but they're not gonna get him. He's too much of an experienced badass. Out of the few possible places he could be heading, the clear pick is likely back to the Vale. They've stayed out of the war this whole time, so there won't be any opposing soldiers lurking around. Plus it shares a border with the Riverlands, and it happens to be where he served House Aaron for years. He commanded over the gate leading up to the castle. How this part of the story will play out should be fun, with him being such a big rebellious force against the Stark enemies, and can help get the Vale involved with the North finally fighting back with good odds on their side. His location shouldn't stay a mystery for long when the next book comes out. A lot of this list has to do with the Lannisters. One of their own went missing in the 2nd book, Tyreek Lannister, a young character and former squire to King Robert Baratheon. He got this close to the king thanks to his close relation to Cersei, their first cousins. One of Tywin's younger brothers is Tyreek's father. Tyreek was cut from the show to not clutter up all the Lannister cousins. Lancel, another one of Robert's squires, was enough for the writers to put on screen. Preceding Tyreek's disappearance, things were getting ugly in King's Landing. The War of the Five Kings was beginning to affect the common people. Starvation was settling in because at this time, the Lannisters didn't have the Tyrells as their close allies to help out with their harvests. Out of desperation, a mob attacks some nobles, saying goodbye to Myrcella as she leaves for Dorne. Tyreek is lost in the chaos and never seen again. Tywin and Tyrion do have people search for him, but nothing comes up. This mob was vicious, and if they got their hands on Tyreek, little would be left of this teenage character. A member of the Kingsguard couldn't survive being in the middle of the riot, being butchered so savagely that he wasn't recognizable. The High Septon, a position usually beloved by the poor, was literally ripped apart, so good luck to this little Lannister. We get some hints about his well-being thanks to Jaime in the 4th book, when we spend a lot of time in his head. Jaime suspects Varys had something to do with his trailless disappearance, since Tyreek was involved with the whole drunken robber death by boar early into the story. Tyreek's uncle, another one of Tywin's brothers, has also gone missing, but his story is a lot more fun and not so depressing. Tyrion Lannister, who Tyrion and Jaime thought of the cool uncle growing up in Castle Rock. A few hundred years back, an old Lannister king sailed to the ruins of Valyria to check out what he could salvage from the destroyed empire. King Tommen brought with him the family's Valyrian steel sword, Brightroar, but never returned home. No one returns from the smoking sea that was created after the doom of Valyria left this peninsula devastated. Tyrion thought he would try and get the sword back for his family, since none could be made again after the sword forging technique was lost in the doom. 10 years before the main story begins, Tyrion would end up missing too. Even Tyrion's crew aboard his ship knew this was a crazy idea. Half of them ditched this mission in Essos when Tywin tried to investigate what went down. King Tommen and Tyrion weren't the only ones who failed plundering the Valyrians' treasures. A non-Targaryen surviving Dragonlord tried his luck with an army and failed. A fleet from Volantis even failed. Euron Greyjoy says he made it there and back in one piece, but he's too unpredictable to take seriously. All these missing characters probably have something to do with the water still boiling from all the undersea volcanoes being active after all this time. Or it could be some creatures from hell lingering around. Back to some more depressing lore. If you recollect Tyrion's horrible backstory, his first wife, he quickly married at the age of 13, hasn't left his mind after all these years. Because of her common birth, Tywin made Jaime tell Tyrion that she was just a hired whore to make him feel loved. Then Tywin had their 2-week marriage annulled, but not before he had all his guards rape her, then pay her a silver coin, while Tyrion paid her a gold coin, a reminder of a Lannister's worth. Right before Jaime frees Tyrion from his imprisonment, he confesses the lie told to him. Tysha truly did love him, and suffered for it. Tyrion was already traumatized from the situation, but now he's barely hanging on. Right before killing his father Tywin, Tyrion asks where Tysha is now. Tywin replies, wherever whores go. That last line is what prompted the last arrow being loosed. Now in Essos, Tyrion randomly obsessively asks people where whores go, hoping to one day run into her. This was a major cut from the show, because it is a character-defining moment. The last character vaguely linked to the Lannisters is Reynold Westerling. The Westerling family is a fairly major part of the Stark Lannister story. Despite being a house in the Westerlands, a lady from House Westerling marries Robb Stark. Yes, she's a book-only character. Her brother, Reynold, was getting close to Robb during the war campaign, and during the Red Wedding, Reynold was hit by a crossbow bolt trying to free Grey Wind on the Freys. He disappears after going to the same river that Catelyn Stark's corpse was dumped in. At the end of Robert's Rebellion, 15 years back, the lady Ned Stark was first interested in before ever setting eyes on Catelyn also jumped into some water, but she did this to presumably end her own life. Ashara Dane, who is a bit of a mystery, unlikely survived the jump off her tower, but her body was never recovered, something purposely added into the story, and you know what that means in fiction. The only things we know about her is her attendance in the tourney at Harrenhal, where a lot of prestigious characters had their eyes on her, and that someone somehow dishonored her during the celebration. But she only jumped after Ned Stark reunited with her to return her family's ancestral sword. Ned returned it out of respect to her brother, Arthur Dayne of the Kingsguard, after the involvement of the fight to the death of Tower of Joy. I've been talking about the Dayne family a lot lately, but another member, Gerald Dayne, aka Darkstar, is also MIA. He intended to murder Myrcella to start a war between the Lannisters and Dorne, but only managed to cut her ear off. With the Martells vocally condemning his actions, he has to hide from both sides now, living on the run. Not too dissimilar from Tyrion's situation in Essos, where no one can know his identity for now, but so many know who he is already, that you can't really call him missing. I'm sure some in the comments will try and point out some that I missed, but I think I got them all. If not, I'll take you bastards on. Thanks for watching.